The thunderous hooves of Nathan Byrd's stallion broke the silence of the Montana plains as he raced toward his ranch, a cold fear gripping his heart tighter than the reins in his calloused hands. A plume of dark smoke rose from the direction of his homestead, the homestead where his two children waited for his return. It was 1887, and the West was still wild enough to make any parent's heart stop at such a sight. Nathan had lost his wife, Margaret, to tuberculosis 2 winters ago, leaving him alone to raise their children, 10-year-old William and 7-year-old Sarah. They were his entire world, the only light left in his life of dust and struggle. As he crested the final hill, relief flooded through him. The smoke came from a controlled burn in the far field, not the house. His ranch hand, Jeremiah, was clearing some brush as planned. The modest 2-story cabin stood untouched, bathed in the golden light of the setting sun. Nathan dismounted, his boots hitting the hard, packed earth with a thud. He removed his hat, revealing sun-bleached hair that had once been a rich brown, and wiped sweat from his brow. At 32, his face was weathered beyond his years, lines carved by sun and sorrow alike. Pa's home. William's excited voice drifted from inside the house, but neither child appeared at the door. Nathan frowned. He'd taught them to greet him when he returned, especially after being in town for supplies all day. Something wasn't right. He approached the cabin cautiously, one hand instinctively hovering near the revolver at his hip. "William, Sarah, come on out, it's just me." His son's face appeared in the window, eyes wide with something that looked like fear. "There's a stranger, Pa," he whispered loudly enough for Nathan to hear. "A lady, she's at the back door." Nathan's heart quickened. Visitors were rare at their remote ranch, especially unaccompanied women. "Stay inside," he instructed, moving swiftly around the cabin. When he reached the back porch, he found her, a young woman with hair the color of autumn wheat, wearing a travel-stained dress that had once been fine. She sat on the bottom step, head in her hands, looking utterly exhausted. "Madam," Nathan said, keeping his distance, "this is private property." She startled, scrambling to her feet. "I'm so sorry," she said, her voice cultured Eastern. "I've been walking for hours. My stagecoach was robbed about 10 miles back. The driver—" Her voice broke. "He didn't make it. I ran before they could catch me." Nathan's jaw tightened. Stagecoach robberies weren't uncommon, but they were becoming rarer as civilization pushed westward. "You walked 10 miles across open country, alone?" "I followed the road until I saw your ranch," she explained, brushing dust from her skirt with trembling hands. "I haven't eaten since morning." "I was hoping," she paused, noticing the children's faces now peering through the window. "I was hoping for a little kindness." Nathan studied her. She didn't look like trouble, more like trouble had found her. Her green eyes held exhaustion, but no deceit he could detect. Still, his children's safety came first. "What's your name?" he asked, still not moving to help her. "Elizabeth Evans," she replied. "I was traveling to Helena to take a teaching position, a schoolteacher." Nathan relaxed slightly. The town of Riverspend, 12 miles away, had been trying to establish a proper school for years. "I'm Nathan Byrd. Those shy ones in the window are my children, William and Sarah." He gestured toward the house. "They don't take to strangers easily, not since their mother passed." Elizabeth's expression softened with genuine compassion. "I understand. Children need time." Nathan noticed how she swayed slightly where she stood. "When's the last time you drank water, Miss Evans?" I'm not certain," she admitted. That decided it. Nathan couldn't leave anyone, especially a woman alone, to the mercy of the Montana wilderness as night approached. "Come inside. We've got food and water. You can rest here tonight, and tomorrow I'll take you to town." Relief washed over her face. "Thank you, Mr. Byrd. I promise I won't be a burden." As Elizabeth followed Nathan into the cabin, the children quickly disappeared from the window. When they entered, William stood protectively in front of his younger sister, both pressed against the far wall. "It's all right," Nathan assured them. "Miss Evans is going to stay with us tonight. She's had a difficult journey." The children remained silent, watching Elizabeth with wary eyes. Years of Nathan's warnings about strangers had taken root deeply. Elizabeth didn't push. Instead, she remained by the door while Nathan poured her a cup of water from the pitcher on the table. "Thank you," she said, accepting it gratefully. After drinking, some color returned to her cheeks. "You have a lovely home." The cabin was simple but well maintained. Margaret's touches were still evident in the hand-stitched curtains and the dried wildflowers in a jar on the mantel. Nathan had tried to keep things the way she'd left them, for the children's sake. "Sarah helps keep it that way," Nathan said, glancing at his daughter who was still hiding behind her brother. "She's getting to be quite the little homemaker, just like her mother." Elizabeth smiled gently. Then, instead of approaching the children, she simply knelt where she was, making herself smaller, less threatening. "It's nice to meet you both," she said softly. "I understand why you're cautious. That's very wise. Your father is right to teach you to be careful." William's stance remained rigid, but Sarah peered around him with growing curiosity. Elizabeth continued, "I was scared too out there alone. Sometimes the world can be frightening, can't it, sweetheart?" Something in her gentle tone, or perhaps the endearment itself, reached Sarah. The little girl nodded almost imperceptibly. "I got lost once when I was about your age," Elizabeth shared. "I was so frightened, but I found my way home just like I found my way here today." Sarah took a tiny step forward. "Did bad men chase you?" "Sarah," Nathan warned, but Elizabeth gave him a reassuring glance. "Yes," she answered honestly, "but I ran very fast and I prayed, and then I saw your ranch, like a miracle." Sarah fully emerged from behind her brother now. "Pa says Mama watches over us from heaven. Maybe she helped you find us." Nathan felt his throat tighten at his daughter's words. Elizabeth's eyes glistened. "Maybe she did," Elizabeth agreed softly. "That would be just like a mother, wouldn't it, sweetheart, to help someone who needed it? That did it." Sarah crossed the room and stood before Elizabeth, who remained kneeling. "Are you hungry?" Sarah asked. "We have stew." Elizabeth smiled. "I'm very hungry, and that sounds wonderful." Nathan watched, amazed, as his daughter, who hadn't spoken to an outsider in nearly a year, took Elizabeth's hand and led her to the table. William followed more cautiously, but his rigid posture had relaxed. "Wash up, children," Nathan instructed, finding his voice again. "I'll serve supper." As the children went to the basin in the corner, Elizabeth rose to her feet. "May I help?" she asked Nathan quietly. "You've done enough already," he replied, nodding toward Sarah. "I haven't seen her warm up to anyone like that since." He didn't finish the sentence. "Children often sense things adults miss," Elizabeth said. "She must feel safe here despite everything. You've created that for her." Their eyes met, and for the first time in 2 years, Nathan felt something stir within him, something he'd thought had died alongside Margaret. Elizabeth quickly looked away, a flush rising on her cheeks. "I truly am grateful for your hospitality, Mr. Byrd." "Nathan," he corrected, "and it's the least I could do." That evening passed more comfortably than Nathan could have imagined. Elizabeth told stories of her journey west from Boston, carefully editing the more frightening parts for the children's sake. She spoke of her dream to teach, to bring education to frontier children who had few opportunities. "Why here?" Nathan asked as they sat by the fire after the children had gone to bed. "Boston has plenty of schools." Elizabeth gazed into the flames. "My fiancé died in the war. It's been many years now, but Boston held too many memories. I needed a fresh start, someplace where I could be useful." Nathan nodded, understanding all too well the need to outrun grief, even while knowing it always caught up eventually. "What about you?" Elizabeth asked. "Have you always been a rancher?" "No, madam. I came west after the war too. Worked cattle drives, did some mining, even tried my hand at bounty hunting for a spell." He looked toward the stairs where his children slept. "Then I met Margaret. She made me want to put down roots, build something that would last." "She sounds remarkable." "She was." Nathan cleared his throat. "The children have her spirit, especially Sarah, strong-willed but gentle-hearted." "I can see that," Elizabeth smiled. "William is protective like his father." Nathan found himself smiling back, surprised at how easy conversation flowed between them. He couldn't remember the last time he'd spoken this much to anyone, let alone a stranger. Yet Elizabeth didn't feel like a stranger anymore. The next morning, Nathan woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of quiet laughter from the kitchen. He dressed quickly and came downstairs to find an astonishing sight. Elizabeth at the stove, Sarah standing on a chair beside her learning to flip pancakes, and William setting the table without being told. "Good morning," Elizabeth said, looking up with a smile that made Nathan's heart skip. Her hair was neatly braided, and she'd borrowed one of Margaret's old aprons. The sight should have bothered him, but somehow it didn't. "We're making breakfast, Pa," Sarah announced proudly. Miss Evans is teaching me how. I see that, Nathan said, amazed at his daughter's transformation from the shy child of yesterday. Smells mighty fine. I hope you don't mind, Elizabeth said. The children were up early and I wanted to repay your hospitality. Not at all. Nathan poured himself coffee. Though I should be getting you to town today. A flash of something disappointment crossed Elizabeth's face, but she nodded. Of course, I've imposed enough. No, Sarah protested, looking between them. Can't Miss Evans stay longer, please, Pa? William, usually so stoic, added, she said she could teach us things. Real school things. Nathan hesitated. The sensible thing would be to take Elizabeth to town, where she could find proper lodging and perhaps connect with whoever had arranged her teaching position. But the thought of returning to their quiet, often somber home without her made his chest tighten. The stagecoach doesn't come through Riversbend again for 3 days, he said finally. You're welcome to stay until then if you'd like. It would give you time to recover from your ordeal. Elizabeth's genuine smile of relief told him he'd made the right decision. That's very kind. I promise to earn my keep. No need for that. Just having someone make the children smile is payment enough. Over the next 3 days, Elizabeth transformed the Byrd household. She taught lessons at the kitchen table, using Nathan's few books and her own creativity to engage the children. She helped with chores, mended clothes that had been piling up, and in the evenings, she brought music back into their home, teaching the children songs she remembered from her childhood. Nathan found himself inventing reasons to stay close to the house rather than tend to the far pastures. He asked Jeremiah to handle more of the distant work, while he repaired fences near the cabin and split extra firewood they wouldn't need for months. All to catch glimpses of Elizabeth through the windows, to hear her laugh with his children, to join them for meals where conversation flowed easily and silence was no longer heavy with grief. On the evening before she was to leave, Nathan found Elizabeth sitting alone on the porch after the children were asleep. The moon cast silver light across the land, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of wild sage. May I join you? He asked. She nodded, making room on the step. It's beautiful here at night, so many stars. One of the reasons I stayed, Nathan said, sitting beside her, the sky goes on forever. They sat in comfortable silence for a while until Elizabeth spoke. Your children are wonderful, Nathan. You've done a remarkable job with them, especially under such difficult circumstances. They've taken to you, he replied. I haven't seen them this happy in a long time. Elizabeth turned to look at him, moonlight illuminating her features. They need more than just me for a few days. They need a school, other children, a community. Riversbend isn't much for community, that's why we keep to ourselves mostly. But it could be, every town starts somewhere, she hesitated. The position I was traveling for it's to start a proper school in Riversbend. The town council has been saving for 2 years to bring in a teacher. Nathan stared at her, pieces falling into place. That's why you asked so many questions about the town, she nodded. I wanted to know what I might be walking into. After what happened on the stagecoach, I was having doubts about staying in such a remote place. And now, Elizabeth looked out at the moonlit landscape, now I'm thinking perhaps there's good reason to stay. Her eyes found his again. If I took the position, William and Sarah could attend school. It wouldn't be far, just the ride into town. The suggestion took Nathan by surprise, not because it was unwelcome, but because he hadn't considered it possible. The children's education had been limited to what he could teach them himself, which wasn't much beyond basic reading and figures. You'd be their teacher, he asked. I would, along with any other children in the area, she smiled. Though I admit I've grown particularly fond of yours. Nathan felt a warmth spread through him that had nothing to do with the summer night. They'd like that, I would too. Their eyes held for a long moment, and Nathan felt himself leaning closer. Elizabeth didn't move away. I should probably turn in, she said softly, though she made no move to stand. Tomorrow will be a busy day. Elizabeth, Nathan said, her name feeling right on his lips. What if you didn't have to stay in town? What if you could teach there but, live here, the words surprised even him. They'd known each other only days, yet it felt like so much longer. Elizabeth's eyes widened. Nathan, are you? The sound of hooves interrupted them, approaching fast. Nathan was on his feet in an instant, reaching for the rifle he kept by the door. Get inside, he ordered. Wake the children and take them to the back room. Elizabeth didn't question him, hurrying into the house while Nathan positioned himself on the porch, rifle ready. Riders after dark rarely brought good news. 3 horsemen appeared in the moonlight, and Nathan's finger tensed on the trigger. But as they drew closer, he recognized the lead rider, Sheriff Cole from Riverspend. "Evening, Byrd," the sheriff called, raising a hand in greeting as they approached. "Sorry to disturb you so late." Nathan lowered his rifle but didn't set it aside. "What brings you out here, Sheriff?" The men dismounted, and Nathan noticed one wore a badge that wasn't from Riverspend. "This is Marshal Dawson from Helena," Sheriff Cole explained. "He's tracking the men who robbed the Helena-bound stagecoach 3 days back, killed the driver and a passenger." Nathan's blood ran cold. "What about the other passengers?" "That's why we're here," Marshal Dawson said, stepping forward. "There was supposed to be a woman on that coach. Elizabeth Evans, traveling from Boston to take up a teaching position. No sign of her body, but her luggage was still in the coach. We've been following the trail, and it leads this direction." Before Nathan could respond, the door opened behind him. Elizabeth stood there, pale but composed. "I'm Elizabeth Evans," she said. "I escaped during the robbery and made my way here. Mr. Byrd has been kind enough to give me shelter." The marshal's tense posture relaxed somewhat. "Madam, we're mighty relieved to find you alive. When we found that stagecoach, well, we feared the worst." "The worst happened to others, not me," Elizabeth said quietly. "Have you caught the men responsible?" "Not yet," Sheriff Cole answered. "But we will. In the meantime, we should get you to town, Miss Evans. The school board's been worried sick when you didn't arrive as scheduled." Nathan felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. He'd known she would leave tomorrow, but having it happen now, tonight, without proper goodbyes, seemed wrong. Elizabeth glanced at him, then back to the lawman. "If it's all the same to you, I'd prefer to travel in the morning. It's late, and I've only just recovered from my ordeal." Marshal Dawson frowned. "Madam, with all due respect, those robbers are still out there. They could be looking for witnesses. You'd be safer in town." "She's safe here," Nathan said firmly, finding his voice. "I've got Jeremiah in the bunkhouse, and I'm well armed. We can bring her to town ourselves in the morning." The marshal looked like he wanted to argue, but Sheriff Cole put a hand on his arm. "Byrd's good people, and he's right, it is late. We've been riding for hours ourselves." He turned to Nathan. "Would you have room for us to bed down in your barn for the night? We can all head to town together come morning." Nathan nodded, relief washing through him. "Of course. Come on, I'll show you where you can settle your horses." As the men followed Nathan to the barn, he glanced back at Elizabeth standing in the doorway, illuminated by the lamplight behind her. Even from a distance, he could see the question in her eyes, the same one that had been interrupted by the lawman's arrival. What was he asking of her exactly? The answer came to him with surprising clarity. Everything. A future. A chance to heal. A family made whole again. Dawn broke with golden light spilling across the plains. Nathan had barely slept, his mind racing with thoughts of Elizabeth leaving, of opportunities lost, of words left unspoken. He found her in the kitchen, already dressed for travel, a small bag of borrowed items at her feet. The lawmen were outside, readying their horses. "The children are still asleep," she said softly. "I couldn't bear to wake them for goodbyes." Nathan crossed the room to stand before her. "Is that what this is? Goodbye?" Elizabeth's eyes searched his. "That depends on what you were going to ask me last night before we were interrupted." Nathan took a deep breath. "I know it's fast, too fast probably, but when Margaret died, something in this house died with her. The light went out, the children stopped laughing, I stopped believing we could ever be truly happy again." He took her hands in his. "Then you showed up at our door, and in 3 days you brought that light back. You knelt down and called my daughter sweetheart, and somehow that one word opened a door that's been locked for 2 years." Elizabeth's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "Nathan, I'm not asking you to replace Margaret. No one could, and I'm not saying I'm in love with you, not yet. But I could be easily. I think maybe I'm already halfway there." "What are you asking then?" she whispered. "Stay, not just as our guest or even as the children's teacher. Stay as someone who might consider being more. Someone who might give us all a chance to see if what we've felt these past days could grow into something real and lasting." A tear slipped down Elizabeth's cheek. "That's a lot to ask of someone you've known for 3 days." "I know." He squeezed her hands gently. "If it's too much, I understand." You can still teach in town and we'll bring the children to school and maybe over time, Nathan, she interrupted, a smile breaking through her tears. I was going to say it's a lot to ask, but not too much. Hope surged through him. What are you saying? I'm saying that I believe some people are brought into our lives for a reason. I was running from my past, looking for purpose, and somehow I ended up here at your door, with your children who needed someone and you, she paused. You who looked at me like I might be someone worth knowing, worth caring about. You are, he said firmly. Elizabeth took a step closer. Then yes, I'll stay not just as a teacher or a guest, but as someone who wants to see where this might lead. Someone who already cares deeply for those children upstairs and for their father. Nathan felt a weight lift from his shoulders, a burden he'd carried for so long he'd forgotten what it felt like to set it down. He leaned forward, hesitant, and Elizabeth met him halfway. Their kiss was gentle, tentative, full of promise rather than passion. A beginning. The sound of small footsteps on the stairs broke them apart. William appeared first, then Sarah, both still in their nightclothes, eyes wide with concern. Are you leaving, Miss Evans? Sarah asked, lower lip trembling. Elizabeth knelt down just as she had that first day. Well, sweetheart, that depends on you and your brother. How would you feel if I stayed, not just for a few more days, but for quite a while? Sarah's face lit up. Really, you'd stay here with us? I'd still need to teach in town during the day, and you and William would come with me to learn. But yes, I'd like to stay here if that's all right with you both. William, always more cautious, looked at his father. Pa, is Miss Evans going to be like Ma was? Nathan knelt beside Elizabeth, facing his children. No one will ever replace your mother, William. She'll always be your ma, and we'll always love her and remember her. He glanced at Elizabeth, who nodded encouragingly. But people can have more than one kind of love in their lives. Miss Evans and I are getting to know each other, and maybe in time she might become part of our family in her own way. Would that be okay with you? William considered this seriously, then nodded. I like when you smile, Pa. You smile more when Miss Evans is here. Nathan felt his throat tighten with emotion. I do, don't I? Sarah, less concerned with adult complexities, simply threw her arms around Elizabeth's neck. Does this mean you'll call me sweetheart all the time? Elizabeth laughed, hugging her back. Whenever you like, sweetheart. Outside, the lawmen waited patiently, unaware that their simple escort duty to town had transformed into something far more significant. They would still ride to Riverspend that day, but not for a goodbye, rather, to introduce the town's new teacher and make arrangements for the school to open. And when evening came, Elizabeth would return with Nathan and the children to the ranch that was becoming her home, to the family that was becoming hers, to the future that had found her when she least expected it. As they prepared to leave, Nathan caught Elizabeth's hand one last time away from the other's eyes. Thank you, he said simply. For what? For being brave enough to knock on a stranger's door, for kneeling down and seeing my children when they were hiding. For being willing to stay and see what might grow here. Elizabeth squeezed his hand. Some seeds only need a little water and sunshine to flourish. I think what's growing between us was just waiting for the right season. Nathan smiled, feeling a sense of rightness settle over him. The land stretched out before them, golden in the morning light, full of promise. Just like their future together.